Hello, everyone. Welcome again to the Being Frank podcast. That's being frank about everything. Nothing is going to be left under the table. And guess what I have with me today? The one and only Eyo Inameti, one of the finest brand strategists in all of Africa. Yeah.
I'm happy to be here, guys. Thank
Yes.
you very much for having me on.
Awesome, man. Great friend, great brother. One of my favorite go-to resources, friends, thinkers, bouncing off ideas. And guess what? He's also the president of the Alumni Fellows Council of the Pop Culture Varsity. So we're always working together, collaborating, right from Insight Publicis to Will Burnett, and working freelance on different projects. And now I'm back together at the Pop Culture Varsity, sharing, bouncing off ideas. So we want to share a perspective with you, and it's I have an idea.
But no strategy.
I have an idea.
But no strategy.
And we get that all the time. Great mindsets, great thinkers, entrepreneurs, startup owners who have beautiful thinking. They want to share something they feel could, mitigate a gap in the industry. Like, frankly, I have this idea. How am I going to get it out? Or I've already have this plan, this business idea, or it's even currently in process. Maybe 2 years developing out, but I feel like I'm not talking to the right audience. Do I scale up? Do I scale down? What are the things we need to do? So today we want to demystify the essence of what it is to have an idea, but what about all the things that need to put into place in preparation of you building, scaling, designing, and ensuring you have a successful business brand or product?
Well, to even start, right? There's this I don't know if it's popular, but I heard it said once and it stuck with me. And that's the fact that everyone feels like opinions are strategy, right? In any strategy session, for those of you who are probably within corporate or you're within the agency system, you realize that when you're having maybe like brainstorming sessions and people that have opinions, and you just expect that your opinion is a strategy because you know how to think. And someone likened that to singing, right? Everyone knows how to sing, but not everyone knows how to sing well, right? You might think you're singing in the bathroom and all of that, but when it now comes to doing it properly enough for it to be appreciated by people, right, you now realize it requires a certain level of taking things up a notch, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's how strategy is. A lot of the time we have thoughts in our minds, and the thing about ideas are a cowboy dozen. You go to outside your house now, right? And you can see ideas on the floor and
Everyone
the rest of
has
that.
one.
Yeah, but what essentially translates that into something that can be identified with or that people want to get behind is the strategy aspect of things, right? So everyone can sing, but not everyone can sing well enough. Everyone can think, but not everyone can sing
Exactly. So
well
that
enough.
goes again. I have an idea, but no strategy. For the layman out there, what is strategy?
So I would say strategy is the intentionality behind having something to do and having an endpoint you want to get to, right? If there is no endpoint, if there is no impact, essentially there's no strategy. That was just probably wishful thinking. So strategy is intentionally wanting to get something done and then having a plan in place to get that thing done.
I love that, which is why I regard it as the ultimate outcome of a process you've put into place. There's a goal, there's an ambition, and you've put a process into place to achieving and arriving at that intended goal. So the strategy must be executable. It must be implementable. And I think a lot of people think presentations are strategy. When you say, okay, I have this great idea, here's my theoretical framework, here's my proposal, that is the strategy. To me, that is an ambition you want to achieve. That is an ideation. That's a vision. You've not carried it out to the ultimate end. So we have strategies that don't execute. And I don't think that I could actually call you a strategic thinker. If you don't put things in place to ensure that the thinking, the vision is actually implemented. So the fact that you have a great idea, but there's no strategy around it to ensure that it's executable, it's scalable, it's sustainable, then it's just one of those things you have when you're having an excitable or
Moment.
excitable moment.
Yeah.
And I think that's the nuances that fuel the thing. But another interesting thing is, especially in Africa, a lot of businesses, according to recent data stuff, we have hundreds of startups and businesses being set up everywhere. In fact, post-COVID, between 2022 and 2025, we have tens of thousands of businesses that have been founded, and over 60 to 70% of them have closed up. That's crazy. So in less than 5 years, every 1 or 2 out of 7 businesses are closed up. So where was that, that imagination, that passion that fueled the intention of bringing this to life? And after 2 to 3 years, you find out. So I get the part about resources, not having enough capital, but shouldn't that be part of the thing you've put into place, creating those scenarios where those things will happen?
I think resources are pretty relative, right? And for me, I'm not necessarily the type of person who likes to think in frameworks, but at the end of the day, frameworks only frame the work. The frameworks aren't the work in themselves. So I use them with the intention to have an outcome. And I think one particular framework that kind of helps put resources into context is something I think you like to call, is it the 5 C's or the 4 C's or what have you, right? Where you have your consumer at the base of everything you want to do, at the heart of everything you want to do. And then you're sure that you're able to build a community around that consumer, right? You're able to build a connection around that consumer. And by connection, what is the higher psychological benefit that this person gets by being a part of what it is you're trying to do, right? What determines that they are being tied to something that is bigger than themselves, right? There's also the place of content. Content might come across as something that has been essentially reduced to entertainment, but it is a form of resource, right? And then when you take all of those things into consideration, the commerce aspect of things becomes a natural byproduct, right? So for me, resource could be in community, right? Leveraging relationships and things of that nature. Resource could be in connection, right? Being able to help people see meaning. That is a resource. So when you think resource, it shouldn't always be coming straight to capital, funding, and all of that. Capital is in different forms, right? Even content. And there's this popular saying about how the way you live your life on a regular basis is content that you're not necessarily using, right? So there's several aspects to resources that you can leverage. And I think these key things that I've mentioned are ways that you can almost guarantee that you scale whatever idea you have, right?
Very, very, very beautiful thought. I love the fact that you brought the C framework into play, and thanks for bringing that up, because these things help create a sense of assembly. You ensure that, am I taking the first right step? So I have an idea about running a beauty product for 18 to 24 years old. The thinking is, do you want to bring it out in Accra? Do you want to roll out in Port Harcourt? What are the unique scenarios of those 2 cities, if I put it that way? What is the commercial framework in terms of pricing? Cultural context is very, very key. Different cultures, even if Nigerians are in both cities or Ghanaians are residing in both these things, there's a way you have to approach them. Different content. What kind of content or communication would now be key to ensuring that whatever it is you're trying to share is very well understood. So the things you've said, very, 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 very okay. I think these are the layouts that entrepreneurs, business owners have done. But again, it doesn't only just end with startup owners and entrepreneurs. Even fledgling businesses that have been in business for a while, have been in industry for a while, 10, 15 years, they usually have to refresh themselves. You see brands that want to rebrand into I want to set up a new SBU, strategic business unit. I want to launch another agency. So the thing is, again, employees or business leaders usually have an idea to recreate or do something different. Do you think they should also follow that same framework? Would it help both the guys who are coming to the business and those who've been there for some time?
Well, most definitely, right? And like I said, this C framework is essentially to help guide scale. So whether you're a small business, whether you're a big business, whether you're a mega business, it works, right? But at the same time, permit me to say something else, or should I say use another structure that I like to use in guiding my thinking. So I call that my STAIR framework, right? And STAIR essentially means S being like a single-minded proposition, and T being like a tension, right? And then I being an insight and R being a resolution, right? So in order to just make any form of endeavor tick all those boxes, that way you know not only are you fulfilling a gap in the market, but you're trying to make sure that there is a market in that gap.
Very interesting.
Right? When you have this, you want to stir up anything you find yourself in, whether it's a category, whether it's an industry, just make sure that you have something that a proposition, something that a form of value that you're offering. And the only way to ensure value is to make sure that there is a tension, that you're nullifying, that you have an inside understanding into whoever you're trying to cater to, and then you have a resolution. So when I pair the C framework and that STAIR framework, the issue of scale becomes almost like automatic.
That's cool.
Yeah.
What I hear you say as well is having a unique value proposition that stands you out. So there's the product, which in itself can be easily commoditized, but the translation of that idea into a physical, experiential, digital, or virtual product or service or platform. It's a process. And then the translation of that stage as well is what is the unique value proposition around those things that will make me connect with this product in competition, in variance with the other product, which is where there's this translation from the product into a brand. Now you start putting an ethos, a value, a correspondence around it. It could be design, it could be colors, it could be sound, it could be taste, it could be language. It could be nomenclature, something that just gives it a uniqueness from this other product vis-a-vis my own product. For example, like we're talking about the beauty product there. So there's two beauty products, and I'm going to call my beauty product Idobale. And Idobale, essentially means in the Yoruba parlance, Yoruba culture context means a show of respect. So that means if you're putting that beauty, that using that beauty product, it means you respect your humanity, you respect your saneness. Just using that as an example. So that means there are two beauty products, but one is Idobale, which means respect your body, respect your frame, respect yourself. So you move from that product into a brand. But that's just still the beginning stages. That brand has to go to the market. I hate that term, market. I mean, that brand has to go to culture. That brand has to connect with consumers. That brand needs to communicate. And for that brand to do that means you have to understand the people you would like to connect with. Breaking it down. And me and you've always talked about the different things about don't target your audience. We don't target consumers anymore. We're doing participation. How do we break down or unpack these people, these beings that this beauty product should connect with? Are there layers of audience segmentation, or is there some basic understanding who this person we should be talking to? In other words, consumer.
I know this is also something you say a lot of, right? Where idea or the concept of culture it could come across as an afterthought a lot of the time in certain conversations. And while the standard thing to do is to utilize STPs, being segmentation, targeting, and positioning, right? At the end of the day, for it to make meaning. So STP is the science of it, right? But you see the aspect of culture you just mentioned is the art of it, right? The being able to actually establish some form of human connection. And culture is that hack. It is that easy aspect of life that makes connection easy, right? So just like you said, taking the Idobale example, for instance, I don't know if we just essentially helped someone build a beauty brand, but in this age where there's a certain level of internal consciousness, right? There's an awareness, a respect for people's bodies and the rest of that. Imagine you tie that into a brand and you say that the name of the brand is Idobale because you respect your body. That is something else.
It's an
entirely
elevation. It just takes you from there to a stratosphere.
Exactly.
And that stratosphere is where ultimately brands and businesses want to be in.
Exactly.
Because you stop trying to sell too much. I think what we've done is you've already baked marketing in the product where I naturally want to gravitate towards products. Like, I love the sound of it. I love the ring of it. What is it about? Curiosity comes in. But price is no longer just the dominating factor. It
Exactly.
no longer the consequence. So I think that's a beautiful thing. So going through those stages again, the vision, I have an idea, but no strategy. So I've developed a product, or I have an idea of a gap in the market that I want to fill. So I've created a product. I've put the brown wrap values around it. So I've moved from a generic beauty product to something I think people would like and connect with a particular kind of audience that are looking for those values, those kind of themes around them. Now I understand the consumer that I would love to also talk to. Now I need to also create content and communication around them, where cultural context also comes in, because even that same product, same price, might be different in terms I connect to them in Ghana, Accra, or in Port Harcourt, Nigeria, because of environment, because of regulation. So again, it has to be customized. So it's not a one size fits all, fits all in that aspect. And then again, another important thing is content can become very generic if you don't also try to build a unique layer around it, which is why everyone is trying to now build communities and tribes where they have become like your own unique fandom, your own unique base of people that would fight, vote, vouch for you, even though they go beyond people just purchasing. They go beyond people that could even give you ideas within that urban community. So you're moving from consumerism to community values system. And in doing that, you can now say, based on this community value system, because I respect what you're bringing, and because I respect the things we're putting into play, what should be the remuneration, transaction, price, whatever. I think that is much more unique than just laying the price that I have to connect with, because we are together ensuring that that product or business will strive.
I'm so sorry. I hope you remember, right? You just said something so profound. You said we're moving away from consumerism to community-based.
Community value system, yes.
That is amazing, right? So I saying that just took me back to when myself and a particular team at some point, I'm not quite sure, where we're trying to build a report. And one of the trends that came up was the fact that we are in the age of the conscious consumer. And that's also the reason why the concept of a target audience doesn't really exist anymore, because no one is staying in one place for you to target them or for you to hit them in quotes, right? They are constantly in motion, right? So when you understand that we're in the age of the conscious consumer, where we need to move away from consumerism into some community or culture-based commerce, right? Purchase decisions become a byproduct. It's not what that's not what's the first thing on the table, right? You've done everything else. You've built an ecosystem. You've built a universe around what it is you're trying to do. It now becomes the question of, oh, I love this ecosystem. I love this universe. I want to experience it. The need for an experience now becomes where the money exchanges hands.
Like we say, experience beats impressions. Like you can't even package, you can't lock, you can't put it in a box.
That's iconic, and I trust you. Before long, who knows? This might turn into some kind of article, right?
It's gonna be full-fledged article.
We're really moving away from consumerism in the ideal sense of the word, right? Because information is everywhere now, right? You can't necessarily bamboozle people into getting things. So the best way to make sure your idea turns into something that is impactful, the strategy in all of that is being able to weave, experience and participation into whatever it is you're doing, right? It shouldn't be something that stays with you alone. Your idea should be something that inspires participation, that elicits meaning in the people you're trying to reach out to, right?
Awesomeness.
Yeah.
As we round up, we're going to share some closing chapters, guides. I have an idea, but no strategy. 5-6 key things, takeaways that we can immediately apply, so it doesn't just become from theory to application to something you can also measure, engage, whatever it is you're working on right now. Try these steps and let's see. So I'll kick off with the first one. I have an idea. There has to be the concept of vision, the fact that there's a bigger other goal beyond you. And like I said, it always starts with the concept of who you are, what you believe in, your point of view. Let's use the beauty space, for example. What is your vision of beauty? I love black. My concept of black is divinity. The fact that the world started in darkness and God said, let there be light. So my concept of beauty is let there be light, let there be transformation, reformation of who you are. That would be my own concept of my vision of beauty. So I've started with a vision. Then what will be the next step?
Okay, so I would also assume that vision means what is the value that you're bringing in, right? For me, the next step then, after you've established the science of it, I think the next thing is to find a way to establish the connection of it, and that's where culture comes in, right? So you just mentioned how you think black is the beginning of things and all of that, right? How do we connect that to the next person, right? I think that is essentially the next step. The next step. Yeah.
So, and then you now also understand what will the packaging or the formation of this thing look like. Is it an experience you want to share? Is it a service? Is it a product? Is it a platform? So, in simple terms, what is your product? Using that term loosely, there has to be a product, moving from the vision to the cultural context. Assume you understand that there are trends and things you have to understand and follow. Then there's the product that you want to share. Now that you have the product that you want to listen, you have to also understand how you turn that product into a brand. So you have to move from product to brand, because product is the commoditized space. The brand gives it a unique form, the design, the colors, the language. So you move to brand. From the brand, you now say, okay, and I have a brand. I have to connect with someone or some people or some group. So the consumers come into play. Okay, scratch that. The humans come into play. And I have to communicate with these consumers. So we talk about content, communication, community. All of those C's now come into that space. I have to connect with them, I have to communicate with them, I have to create unique content that, we bounce off. Then once you have established those values, then you can ask, okay, what will be the commercial layout for this, and which is the close? What is the commercial layout of these things? And then you can now start working backwards and create an entire ecosystem that builds on and on and on.
Yeah.
So great speaking about this, and I think we'll share some perspectives. Like, these are points of view, and that's just being frank.
Yeah. So essentially, I think you can also share yours with us. What do you think? How do you get someone from merely having an idea to having the strategy to make that idea a reality, right? Thank you.
Cheers.